Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. President Trump is hosting members of Congress right now for dinner at the newly renovated White House Rose Garden. That's where he was supposed to host 24 tech CEOs last night. That got rained out. We'll be watching tonight's event closely. The president is expected to appear, and when he speaks, we'll take those remarks live. But first, the White House pressure campaign that appeared not to work. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he's staying in the race for mayor, despite the reports that were mounting that Adams was being not so quietly courted by the White House, willing to do almost anything to keep City Hall from the clutches of socialist Zohran Mamdani. President Trump has publicly weighed in repeatedly and apparently behind the scenes as well, all to no avail. This race is not just consequential for New York City. The mayor of New York City is arguably the second toughest job in America. Trump's plan reportedly was to clear the field and consolidate support behind former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Surely Adams would be hard-pressed to resist a cushy job in the Trump administration, even a potential ambassadorship. Surprise? Adams just said late today he's not going anywhere, and he lit into his opponent, Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo is a snake and a liar. I am in this race, and I'm the only one that can beat Mamdani. This city can't go backwards, New Yorkers. This is a city that I inherited, where crime was out of control, COVID, no one wanted to be on our subway system. I have two spoiled brats running for mayor. They were born with silver spoons in their mouths, not like working class New Yorkers. They are not like us. I'm running, and I'm going to beat Mamdani.
Now, President Trump, speaking just a few moments ago from the Oval Office, was expressing something akin to resignation. With Adams staying in the race, it seems a Mamdani victory is all but assured. Although he does say, President Trump, that he never offered Adams an ambassadorship at all.
I think the mayor's a very nice person. I helped him. He got caught up in a scam by the Biden administration, what they did. So I helped him out a little bit, but I would understand why he doesn't do it. I do think this. I think if you have more than one candidate, we've got ourselves a communist mayor in New York. I would say that Cuomo might have a chance of winning if it was a one-on-one. If it's not one-on-one, it's going to be a hard race. And we'll get used to a communist, and he's going to have to go through the White House and get approvals for everything, and we're going to make sure that New York is not hurt.
Now, Adams, it should be noted, has been consistently dead last in the polls. Meanwhile, Mamdani is so flush with cash that now he's begging his supporters to stop donating money to his campaign, saying he's met the $8 million fundraising cap set by the city's campaign finance board, much of it in small dollar donations. And in response to Adams' announcement today that he's staying in the race, Mamdani posted this meme from the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. Okay, it's Friday. We had to have some fun. With us is NewsNation contributor Chris Cillizza and Olivia Reingold, staff writer for the Free Press. Great to have both of you here. All right, Olivia, this is your beat. What happened? I mean, we heard that the Trump administration dangled ambassador to Saudi Arabia, head of Department of Health and Human not Health and Human Services, the HUD,
yes,
the Housing and Urban Development. He was dangled so much, and he said no.
Right. So there's been a lot of resignation since Zohran Mamdani won in a huge upset in the Democratic primary. And the billionaire class, the real estate developers, they've been really resigned. They've been resigned to the fact that it really seems like it's going to be Zohran as our next mayor. And then earlier this week, this rumor broke out like a wildfire that Eric Adams is going to drop out. You know,
he was down in Florida reportedly
exactly.
meeting with members of the Trump team, even Steve Witkoff, all who were enticing him.
Right. And so the rumor was Friday. It's definitely going to happen Friday. And then earlier this morning, I heard, okay, maybe it's Monday. Anyway, so when this is happening this afternoon, I'm getting texts from these billionaires, from these Cuomo donors saying, oh my gosh, it's about to happen, because Eric Adams' word was out that he was holding this emergency presser, and he gets on, and right away, when I see the look on his face, I know something is not quite right here. This is not a concession speech.
No.
And it wasn't. It was a really defiant speech in which he said he's not going anywhere.
He can't win. No poll shows him even remotely close to a plausible win.
In fact, he is probably in danger of dipping beneath 5%, which is not a great look. And so it's unclear what this is. I mean, Cuomo world is definitely, it could be denial that they're in right now, but the new rumor is that this is a tactic, that this is a negotiating ploy.
For
that
an even better job?
Because perhaps the ones available to him, the HUD position would require Senate confirmation along with an ambassadorship, and perhaps he's worried he can't clear Senate confirmation. And so,
which says so much, by the way. I don't know. Hey, Chris, President Trump reacted just a short time ago to this news, saying, all right, if he wants to stay in, he can stay in. You know, you've got yourself a communist mayor in New York City. Why is President Trump getting so involved in this mayor's race of New York City? Wouldn't a Democratic socialist mayor of New York, of America's biggest city, be a great foil for him?
1,000%. There's, from a purely political perspective, Elizabeth, Donald Trump should stay as far away from this as possible. Let all the candidates stay in and let Zohran Mamdani win, because look, they are not in great shape in terms of boogeymen to raise money against, right? No Hillary Clinton, right? Barack Obama's probably too old. Nancy Pelosi's, you know, Zohran Mamdani is it. It's a gold mine.
Right.
Why? I think, honestly, because I know he's not a New York resident anymore, but I think, you know, look, he grew up in New York City. He spent his entire life until the last 2 years as a resident of New York City. So I think he can't sort of help himself, but he's 100% right. I mean, look, I'm not even sure that Zohran Mamdani loses if Eric Adams gets out and endorses Andrew Cuomo, which is basically impossible now that you've called him a snake. But I would say Olivia's right. I don't rule anything out with Eric Adams. If on Monday we're talking about Eric Adams dropping out of the race, I wouldn't be stunned. But don't assume that that means that Andrew Cuomo is going to be the mayor. I still think Zohran Mamdani. You got to get everybody but Cuomo and Mamdani out. And I don't know how you get Curtis Sliwa out.
Yeah, well, he said he's only leaving in a pine box, so we'll see about that. Olivia, it's a dual-edged sword to have Trump's support. Right. 66% of New Yorkers do not like President Trump. You know, part of the reason why Eric Adams has no shot at winning right now is because Eric Adams took a pardon, basically, got all his charges cleared for him by the Trump administration.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. It arguably, you know, it is probably Cuomo's dream right now that Eric Adams drops out along with Curtis Sliwa, but at the same time, the stain of possible White House intervention, that is a huge, that's a huge vulnerability. But I just wanted to say, it was kind of surprising to hear Chris say his position just now, because that's actually kind of the conservative position that, oh, we really want Zohran to be mayor because we would be able to fundraise off of him. And I actually think Trump is probably too shrewd. I think it's twofold. I think he really does care about New York and is concerned by Zohran, who he calls a communist, not just a socialist. But I think that he understands that Zohran is really quite popular, and this. I think he's scared of this big populist wave that could rush across America.
He's popular, and he does what President Trump does very, very well. They both communicate remarkably effectively and connect with the common man. It's fascinating to watch this mayor's race in the next couple months. Buckle up. It's going to be really, really intense. All right. Olivia Reingold, thanks so much. Chris, Eliza, you stay with us for a second because I want you to weigh in on this next story because it's our other big story of the night, and it's the economy. The split screen impacting millions of Americans. Stocks are soaring on one hand. President Trump's tariffs are set to bring in trillions of dollars, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Those who own a home have seen their property value rise for years now. Well, just last night on the show, we saw the titans of tech also promise trillions of dollars in U.S. investment. Let's hope they follow through on those. But today, a brutal wake-up call. A dismal jobs report shows a major slowdown in the first job losses since the height of the pandemic. The economy added just 22,000 jobs in August. It was down from 79,000 in July. The unemployment rate ticked up to 4.3%, the highest since October of 2021. And when you add in people working part-time and others who stopped looking for work, that rate of unemployment goes up to 8.1%. The report also showed a downward revision for the month of June. 13,000 jobs were lost. That is the first drop since December of 2020, during President Trump's first term, when many of us were all still hunkered down during COVID. The Trump administration has been focused on growing manufacturing and construction employment long term, and to be fair, that does take time. But at the moment, both of those sectors are struggling. Factories cut 12,000 jobs last month, the fourth straight month of manufacturing job losses. In construction, 7,000 jobs were slashed. Now, that's a lot of bad news on the jobs front, but if you are looking for that silver lining, here's where it might be. Take a look at Wall Street. Even with today's sell-off, stocks do remain near record highs. And investors are seeing that the slowing job market might be another way that the Fed will cut interest rates more aggressively, perhaps, in its next meeting. That is something the president has been repeatedly calling for. Here's how one of Trump's top advisors defended the economy just moments ago at the White House.
There's capital spending boom, industrial production at an all-time high. The Atlanta Fed says GDP now is north of 3%. And so all the indicators are saying that things are really strong. And what we've also seen is that Goldman Sachs put out a study yesterday that said that the August number tends to be really messed up because of seasonal adjustment things, and they tend to be revised way up.
Okay. Let's make sense of all of this. Spin and not spin. Chris Eliza is back with us. And of course, Caleb Silver is the editor-in-chief of Investopedia. Great to have both of you here. Okay, Caleb, we just added 22,000 jobs in August, way down from what all the forecasts have been. What happened?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it. All the sectors you thought might be improving by now are just not improving.
Why not?
We continue to see, because this economy has not yet been turned around in the way in which the Trump administration envisions it. It's going to take time. We have heard promises from tech companies. We've heard promises from tech CEOs about massive investment in this country. What we haven't heard is how many people they intend to hire when they make those investments. And the most important metric right now, probably in the stock market, and the one you hear about a lot in Silicon Valley, is revenue per employee. Which companies are getting the most out of their employees? Top of that list, NVIDIA, the biggest stock in the market. So companies are doing more with less and are generating a lot of profit. That's why you see the stock market dancing around record highs.
The job numbers were also revised badly to the detriment in June. That is right when the Trump tariffs were at peak threat, peak uncertainty. How much is it the tariffs that is driving this?
Just the lack of hiring in general. The only sectors that are really seeing growth are the ones that have been seeing growth for the past 2 to 3 years, and that's healthcare and social assistance. But when you look at government jobs, that was down. We've now lost 97,000 government jobs so far this year, and we're not even done with the furloughs. You talked about revisions. Hold your hat for September next week, September 9th. They're going to revise the past 12 months, and we're actually going to see that the labor market was not as strong as we thought it was, even way before the election. It's just been a weakening labor market as companies are getting more productivity out of less people.
And if those companies are unsure because they don't know what's happening with the tariffs, they're not going to invest, they're not going to hire, they're not going to spend or start big projects. Chris, the economy is one of the big reasons that President Trump won the election. It has been an enduring strong point for him, but Trump's approval rating on the economy is now down to 37%. There's going to be mounting pressure to do something.
Yeah, look, Elizabeth, I always cite my favorite stat from the 2024 election. 33% of people said the economy was the most important issue in deciding their vote. Of that group, Donald Trump won 81, you heard me, 81% to Kamala Harris's 18%. It is not more complicated than that, right? I mean, there's a million inputs on how elections go, but that's the central one. And I think, what does the economy mean to people, I think, is a real question. We know the economy is not just the stock market. We know the economy is not just the jobs report every month. But I think for people who said, you know what, I don't trust Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, I don't think they know what's going on here. Donald Trump's going to fix it, and he promised to fix it. He still has time. If you're looking for silver lining, you highlighted one I was going to say, which is maybe the Fed drops interest rates now, which Donald Trump has been trying to press Jerome Powell to do forever. The other one, it's September 2025, not September 2026. This jobs report in September 2026, if I'm a Republican in a swing state or a swing district, I'm starting to look at the job market post-election because I'm probably going to lose.
Yeah, well,
so
that's
there is time.
That's a silver lining for if you're a Republican in office. You know,
Yes.
I was very struck, Chris, that this morning the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, was on television still saying this is just a holdover from the Biden administration. Isn't this Trump's economy?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, look, Donald Trump has said before, I'm paraphrasing him, but only by a little, he said, the good stuff is Trump, the bad stuff is Biden. I mean, like, that'll sell for that's like my kids. Like, I did the stuff that you like, but my brother did the stuff that was bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's not how it works. I think that will sell to the base. It will not sell to swing and independent voters. Donald Trump is the president. Republicans control the House. Republicans control the Senate. They passed a one big beautiful bill. This was supposed to reorient domestic spending. Again, I still think they have time. It is September of 2025. But I will tell you, you know, if this turns around in October of 2026, it's probably too late in terms of political terms. You really need a corner to start being turned first quarter 2026,
Soon.
probably.
Yeah, soon.
Yeah.
Super quick, Caleb, do you think the Fed does do a bigger rate cut?
Yeah, I think the probability just got a lot higher, and maybe they should have been cutting before if they had known how weak it was, and that's another
Even the
question.
last time when they didn't do anything, there were mounting calls from people who don't have a political stake, but people who know their stuff, that, I don't know, I think maybe we should have started.
Yeah, I think that's the drumbeat you're hearing, and you're probably going to get a cut and maybe promises of one or two more before the end of the year.
Okay. We shall see. Caleb Silver, Chris Eliza, thanks so much, both of you. Coming up for us, the Trump administration is sending fighter jets into Puerto Rico as it ramps up its battle against drug cartels. But does making the war on drugs a literal war on drug dealers violate international law? We'll get into that coming up. And later, exclusive new details on the blunders and possible cover-ups regarding the worst wildfire in California's history. Evidence suggests all of this didn't need to happen. So what's in a name? Well, American servicemen are about to find out. The U.S. military and President Trump tonight is rebranding the nation's military, reviving a name that hasn't been used in this country since 1947. Trump signed an executive order this afternoon changing the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. The move, Trump says, conveys a stronger, more powerful U.S. military. Within minutes, changes were afoot at the Pentagon, which coincidentally has not been renamed. The president signaled a robust new offensive in the nation's war on drug smuggling cartels.
350,000 people died last year from drugs. And we're not going to let that happen to this country. When I see boats coming in, like loaded up the other day with all sorts of drugs, probably fentanyl mostly, but all sorts of drugs, and we're going to take them out.
The Pentagon is intensifying its military operations in the Caribbean as a show of force against those drug cartels. 10 F-35 fighter jets have been deployed to Puerto Rico. The jets will join U.S. warships who are already in the region positioned near Venezuela. The move is stoking tensions with the country, which accuses the United States of narco-terrorism. The Pentagon says the Venezuelan military planes flew near a U.S. Navy vessel in international waters on Thursday in a, quote, highly provocative move. This all follows a U.S. military strike on Tuesday on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean. The president says that strike killed 11 terrorists with the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. For more now, let's go to Stacy Zinn, the former head of the Montana Drug Enforcement Agency, and Kaj Larson, a former Navy SEAL who led elite special operations teams on missions everywhere. Thank you both for joining us. Very quickly, Stacy, I want to start with you. Why Puerto Rico? Is it as a staging area throughout the Caribbean?
Yes, and that's where the safest place for our planes to be located.
Yes, because it's an American territory. But what do you expect those fighter jets to be able to do from there? Do you know?
Well, once you get information that there are multiple vessels that are deporting Venezuela, then they will launch from that area, and from there, we'll see what will happen.
Kaj, we just saw this strike, this U.S. military strike on this cigarette boat that the administration says was carrying a large amount of cocaine. We're looking at video of that here. There's been a lot of debate this week about the legality of this. We don't know exactly who was on board, but the administration says it has not yet provided proof that 11 terrorist drug dealers were on that boat and that there was a lot of cocaine on that boat. Do you think this is going to become an issue?
What I'd like to do is take the kind of long view historical perspective of that, and that's going back many decades, the U.S. military has understood the nexus between terrorism and narco trafficking. We have a long precedent of targeting narco traffickers who engage in terrorist operations. And so this strike is really nothing new. There is, of course, a political dimension to everything these days. But I would say in this particular case, us on the military side have spent a lot of our careers, especially in the special operations community, processing counter-narco-terrorism.
And when you make the argument that cracking down on these gangs, and by the way, you say Tren de Aragua is a narco-terrorist threat. I mean, this is not just some criminal gang. This is a bigger criminal enterprise.
Absolutely, and you nailed it exactly. They're designated as an FTO, a foreign terrorist organization, and I spent my 13-year career in special operations hunting down foreign terrorist operations. And to sort of further illuminate this nexus between special operations and the military and counter-trafficking just shows the, I think Stacey would agree, our long, very close relationship working with the DEA on these kind of operations. When I was in Afghanistan, I actually lived in Osama bin Laden's former guest house with 2 DEA agents, and we spent our days going after Taliban operatives who were distributing heroin to the world.
Stacey, President Trump says that the president of Venezuela is the leader of Tren de Aragua. Do you know what he's talking about? Is that, I mean, what do you know from your background in drug enforcement?
Well, you go back to the history. Hugo Chavez was the leader back then. When he left, Maduro took over about in 2013. They have always been the leaders of the drug trafficking in their area. They have military support. They've teamed up with the FARC. They teamed up with Cartel de los Soles, now TDA. They are actually overseeing the movement of the drugs. They're allowing drugs to come to their country. The individuals who are well, they receive a tax for the drugs coming into their area, and then they allow permissions for the drugs to leave their country and to go into the United States.
Right. Yeah, as you pointed out the last time, drugs aren't made necessarily in Venezuela. They're passing through Venezuela. But Maduro, as president of Venezuela, is collecting a lot of money from the cartels as they do that. Stacey's in. Kaj, Larson, thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right, coming up for us, a NewsNation exclusive. Why did so much of Los Angeles become a wildfire inferno? Well, we're learning about a series of missteps that may have made the disaster even worse. Could lives have been saved? Plus, it's a popular medication among pregnant women, among everybody, actually. But Health Secretary RFK Jr. might be making a big announcement about Tylenol and pregnant women. The White House says we won't confirm or deny anything. We're going to dig into a shocking report out of the Wall Street Journal next. Acetaminophen is the most commonly used over-the-counter pain medication during pregnancy. In fact, more than half of all pregnant women take it, which is why this new report caught our eye. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is planning to announce that using the popular pain reliever, Tylenol, while pregnant may be linked to autism. Now, the White House tonight said speculation about what's in RFK Jr.'s upcoming report on the causes of autism are premature. But regardless of whether RFK makes that announcement or not, there has been a lot of research on this exact question. A study, in fact, recently by Harvard University, just from 3 weeks ago, says that kids exposed to acetaminophen during pregnancy might be more likely to develop neurodevelopmental disorders like autism and ADHD. They cautioned it does not mean Tylenol causes autism. Joining us now is Dr. Mahsa Tehrani. She's the co-founder of the Arthritis and Rheumatology Clinical Center in Northern Virginia. If this report today, that study 3 weeks ago, it's not completely out of left field. A group of 100 scientists put out a statement 4 years ago saying using acetaminophen during pregnancy was risky, right?
Exactly, Elizabeth. Yes, the data has been very conflicting about the use of acetaminophen. However, this most recent study, as you said, 3 weeks ago, was a pool of 46 studies looking at over 100,000 patients globally. And they did find an overwhelming association between use of acetaminophen in utero exposure and these neurobehavioral diseases.
Yeah, but more than half of pregnant women in America take Tylenol. We don't have more than half the people in America with autism who are born. You know what I mean? That it does not compute, right?
Absolutely. Remember, this most recent study, most of these studies have been observational. We don't have the gold standard randomized controlled trials proving this, so there's not absolute causality, but the observation is strong enough for us to take a look, especially during a time where autism spectrum disorders are at such a high rate these days. I think that genetic variances, there are a lot of factors that go into play here, and further studies should shed light on who would be more at risk. But the bottom line at this point is we have this additional data, and I do think that we have to be a bit more cautious about how we advise our patients about taking acetaminophen. For example, my patients who have arthritis, it's been my go-to recommendation: take Tylenol for your joint pain. I may have to consider that. I also want to say, though, we should not allow pregnant women, I don't want them to be scared if somebody's pregnant and has a fever. That fever absolutely should be treated. And this is where shared decision-making comes into play. That high fevers can increase birth defects, miscarriage rates. So it's important to have a discussion with obstetricians and gynecologists about this new data.
Yeah, Tylenol is what, pregnant women turn to. I know I did when I was pregnant both times. It's what's considered safe.
Yes.
So, and many pregnant women take it. All right, Dr. Mahsa Tehrani, a lot more, I think, to be teased out here, but really appreciate you coming on. All right, switching gears now, 8 months after the devastating Pacific Palisades fire reduced much of Los Angeles to ashes, we're learning about possible failures that led to the worst wildfire in California's history. NewsNation exclusively obtained documents that revealed missteps by officials in California. All those missteps contributed to the catastrophic losses. 12 people died as a result of the Palisades fire. The total economic cost is between $18 and $20 billion for insured losses alone. President Trump was asked about how Governor Gavin Newsom handled the Palisades fire during an Oval Office press conference Wednesday afternoon. When asked if Congress should investigate claims of negligence, here's how the president responded.
They send the water out to the Pacific Ocean, so I demanded it be open. If that were open during the fire, before the fire, you wouldn't have had the fire because all the sprinklers would have worked in the houses. They had no water. As to investigation, I view it as a gross incompetence. I view it as an ideology that's wrong.
NewsNation investigative correspondent Rich McHugh reviewed those documents. Rich, what did you learn?
Hi, Elizabeth. There were failures across the board. Before the fire, certainly during the fire, and after. We're learning of disturbing missteps that ultimately led to 12 people losing their lives and 7,000 structures being destroyed. When the Palisades fire started on January 7th, Michael Valentine was one of the first to see it. He shot these videos as his wife called 911, and he waited and waited for help to come.
I did not see any firefighters up there.
Why do you think that is?
That's the question. I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that. I have no idea. I have no idea why that is.
Today, his home is gone. and Valentine is among the thousands suing the state and the city.
Wow. At least the stoop is still here.
And that's where it started, right?
Yes, exactly.
Or just beyond that?
Just beyond that, yeah. But that's roughly where it started.
We're here on the Skull Rock Trailhead, where authorities believe simmering embers from a New Year's Eve fire ultimately was the start of the January 7th fire, the Palisades fire that swept down this ridge, ultimately taking 7,000 structures before it was finished. All the while, the Santa Ynez Reservoir over there sat empty. Shortly before the fire started, Governor Gavin Newsom pre-deployed hand crews and 110 fire trucks to Southern California.
And none of those went to Pacific Palisades. They
Not
went
one?
elsewhere. Not one went to Pacific Palisades. We had a brush fire within 5 days prior to the Palisades fire starting. So the first place you should pre-deploy, in my view, is you'd send them to where you had a recent fire, and that didn't happen. Nor did any National Guard troops arrive at the Palisades fire site before the fire started.
Roger Bailey represents over 3,000 Palisades victims suing the state of California, Los Angeles, and the LA Department of Water and Power. Internal records Bailey has obtained show what he believes are massive failures. While the Santa Ynez Reservoir sat empty, LADWP was supposed to put the Palisades Reservoir into service. That never happened. And on the day of the fire, documents show that LADWP acknowledged they should have de-energized the grid.
We had independent spot fires starting all over the Pacific Palisades after the main fire started, burning down homes, burning down neighborhoods. Had the power been turned off, those spot fires would have been avoided.
And then they tried to cover their tracks.
The person that was supposed to shut the power off didn't arrive until much later in the day. And when he finally arrived, he determined that he couldn't shut the power off and the fire was at the back door and he had to leave. About 3 weeks later, that same technician goes back into the log records and changes the time that he said he arrived from 6 o'clock in the evening back to 1:45 in the afternoon, a change of about 5.5 hours.
If you had to characterize the state and the city's response to these fires on January 7th, what would you say?
Incompetent. This is just the redefining incompetence. This is what you'd expect to see in a third world country. You don't expect to see this in the United States or in the state of California.
Never in a million years would have I suspected that the city and the LADWP would seek to manufacture facts to fit their narrative in order to avoid liability. It's absolutely disgusting.
Now, CAL FIRE just confirmed to me that they did not pre-deploy any fire trucks to the Palisades before the fire. We are still awaiting comment from LADWP. We're also hearing that a Senate investigation into all of this is imminent. Elizabeth?
Right, Rich McHugh, thanks so much. Coming up for us, what did you think of today's job numbers and what they were going to be? And who do you think the president will be having dinner with next? Are you willing to back up your opinion with money? Our weekly segment, The Smart Money, is next. So as we've been reporting, the August jobs report and the New York City mayoral election are big news tonight. And for some people, that could mean big money. We're talking about folks who are betting on news events on platforms like Polymarket and Kalshi. These prediction markets have had an impressive record of correctly indicating and predicting what's going to happen. Did they just do it again? Well, in the past few hours, we witnessed some remarkable activity. NewsNation's Hannah Doba reports.
Let's get real. No filter, no fluff, no bull.
This week, we learned the so-called wisdom of the crowd doesn't always deliver.
I am in this race, and I'm the only one that can beat Mamdani.
On Kalshi, traders had Eric Adams' chances of dropping out of the mayor's race soaring above 90%. But with Adams announcing he's staying in, those odds have collapsed back to the mid-30s. A reminder that even the smart money can miss. And for any diehard Adams traders, a potentially huge payday. Traders were also tracking the trouble in the economy.
Greatest job boom the world has ever seen. We're going to do that.
Today, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics released an anemic jobs report, registering a measly 22,000 jobs added in August. On Kalshi, the dive began a full day before the report. Traders were ahead of the headlines, the smart money signaling weakness. Another market to watch, who Donald Trump will meet with in the upcoming months.
I have no message to President Putin.
The betting odds have been all over the place. Take a look at Putin's numbers in particular. A sharp drop as traders reassess the likelihood of a sit-down. Laura Loomer seems to be heading the pack, followed by Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. But here's the real question. What happens if the right-wing activist does get that meeting? Loomer has pushed Trump to go harder on immigration, reinstate his travel bans, and even punish media outlets she calls fake news. If she does walk through those doors, the betting markets will be telling us the policy conversation is about to shift sharply to the right. It's a reminder of just how sensitive these markets are to headlines and speculation, and how quickly sentiment can shift.
All right, joining us now is Decision Desk HQ Data Science Director Scott Tranter. Okay, you're an expert in polling. What's the difference between polling and what's happening on these prediction markets?
Well, there's a little bit different in the sense that polling is a small sample of people and we extrapolate it out. What you're seeing on Kalshi in these prediction markets is people are putting their money where their mouth is, as you put it, smart money, and they're doing it live, real time, 24 hours a day. But at the end of the day, both of them measure the same thing. Polling measures sentiment and these prediction markets measure sentiment.
All right, they got it really wrong with Mayor Adams, who stunned everybody, including the White House, as well as I think Andrew Cuomo, when he announced a short time ago, I'm not going anywhere. But most of the time, these prediction markets get it right. What is that? When we say the wisdom of the crowd, what are we talking about?
Well, the wisdom of the crowd is in a lot of these events, whether it's going to meet with Donald Trump or what's going to happen with the job numbers or any of these things, someone knows. Maybe not everyone knows. And if you know, you can put money on it. And right now it's legal and it's regulated. It's okay. And you're going to put a lot of money on it if you know who, President Trump's going to meet with next. Or my favorite market is, what is he going to say next in his next speech? Words like that. Those are the markets that are garnering a lot of attention.
Yeah, my son tells me you can even bet on what the high temperature will be in any given city or place, which I can't believe people are betting on that, but okay.
Weather nerds. They're making a lot of money.
Weather nerds. I mean, there's something for everybody, I guess. Yeah. So Henna just reported that some of these bettors got it right about the job market, the bad jobs report that we got, this morning. The White House got it last night. Does this mean folks inside the White House were placing bets? I'm joking, but seriously, is that just reading the room well when it comes to the economy?
So there's always chatter that someone knew. And, there's no substantiated rumors. There's a lot of people talking on Twitter or bots talking about Twitter on that. What I will say is things like the jobs report and things like these, if you're really smart and you're really into the numbers, you can place a very well-reasoned bet on what's going to happen. There were previous job numbers from ADP a few days ago. These are surveys. So, there's some pretty smart people out there who are willing to spend some time and make a smart money bet.
How quickly, though, can these things change on these prediction markets?
Oh, instantaneously, 24/7. On election night in 2024, millions of dollars moved within a few minutes as we on NewsNation here were calling various states for Donald Trump.
So very quickly, Scott, are these sort of prediction markets going to put great pollsters like you out of business? I sure hope not.
I don't think so. I'm a fan of them. I think they're great. They're great sentiment tools. Look, but they can be wrong too. I mean, if you look at them in sports or in your point in the Mayor Adams announcement, they go back up and down just like polls do because, the direction of the event changes. I think they're a great additive tool. I don't think they're going to replace polling.
All right. Good to hear. Scott Tranter, your job is safe. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Thank you. Chris Cuomo joins me next. We'll be right back. All right, Chris Cuomo joins me now. Chris, you've got a really interesting booking tonight. You're about to talk to the Florida Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, who just announced that Florida is going to end all childhood vaccine mandates. I think he said because they're, quote, dripping with disdain and slavery. Curious to hear his explanation for that.
Yeah, I'm going to try to step around the slavery metaphor. I don't see what's productive about that. Obviously, the doctor can say whatever he wants. Look, I see this as an extension of the extremism that's dominating our politics. And, you know, you can win it on the simple, which is Trump doesn't agree with you. DeSantis is quiet about it. This seems like they're really getting out over their skis of trying to please the anti-vaxxers. And they got to remember, that is not the majority, not in Florida, certainly with the aged population that they have in South Florida, and not in this country.
What is
I want to hear them out.
Yeah,
let's see what it's about.
What has Governor DeSantis said, if anything, on this? You know, surely he's not freelancing here.
Well, he was highly anti-mandate, right? And about anti-shutdowns and anti-all of these policies. Yeah. But look, I mean, that's mission creep, right? Because vaccine is vaccine. I mean, you could argue whether or not the mRNA COVID vaccines are actually vaccines or really therapeutics, but that's too in the weeds for everybody. And it's just, if a little bit is good, more is better. And that's extremism in politics. And I want to give the guy a chance, you know, double Harvard, right? Harvard Med, Harvard Public Policy. So this is a highly educated guy in a big position of power in a major state who's saying something that even the head of his own party doesn't agree with. So let's discuss it.
All right. It'll be a great show. Have a good one and have a great weekend.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.